Singapore. It's a highly computerized city-state that runs like clockwork. And it's racing to become a super-connected smart nation. But there are dangers in being so connected.
So transportation grids, energy security grids, finance grids, all the networks are somehow systematically interconnected. And if you find vulnerability in any of those grids, you can basically disrupt all the other grids.
High-profile cyber hacks internationally have shown they can have the potential to cause physical damage and potentially loss of life as well. As you know, Singapore has suffered a series of hacks in the past. We should not assume that we are immune.
We can't afford to be complacent because the nature of the threat is evolving all the time.
No one agency or even the government as a whole can manage cybersecurity by itself.
The more technology we use and more vulnerable we become because the technology is the medium of today's new wars or future wars.
Every year, sirens sound across Singapore to mark the day the island was conquered during the Second World War.
78 years ago to this day, 15th of February, was one of the darkest moments in our history.
Air raid sirens once warned of terror from above. But today's sirens remind citizens that peace depends on them.
Our strongest defense as a nation is collective defense when each and every one of us play our part. This is the essence of total defense.
For 35 years, total defense had just 5 pillars: military defense, civil defense, economic defense, social defense, and psychological defense. Then in 2019, a 6th pillar was added: digital defense.
We are now in a digital era. Digital defense has become key to undergird, to ensure Singapore's continued growth as an economy and our cohesion and progress as a society.
Digital defense is a wider concept than just cybersecurity. It covers cybercrime, personal data, online falsehoods.
The whole total defense policy is that all of us have a part to play. And it's true enough, all of us can potentially be either the secure link or the weak link.
Technological dependencies are becoming much more greater than ever before. So every pillar of total defense, right, military, economic, psychological, social, and others, they are all intertwined through cyber defense. And you can use cyber to undermine all pillars of total defense, right? So that creates the need to have a digital pillar as a 6th pillar of total defense.
Millions of cyber attacks are launched every day, and the World Economic Forum considers cyber attacks a top global risk. But the challenge is getting citizens to take cyber threats seriously.
The sheer fact of the security and stability in Singapore, which we have grown up with, which we take for granted, it can be a little bit problematic sometimes because this is a cyber threat that we cannot see. We cannot feel.
I think raising awareness is very important to prevent the effects of surprise. So when this major cyber attack happens, so you can create that awareness that, first of all, it's possible, and second of all, what to do or how to react to that.
Putting digital defense into total defense is an effective way of putting the message across. Total defense has become an integral part of our lives, how we deal with challenges and threats, as well as how we rally Singaporeans together in crisis.
For people to engage in digital defense, they must know a range of cyber threats. Cyber-espionage is the use of computers to access confidential information. It's also known as cyber spying.
What is really interesting about cyber is that you really don't have to necessarily send human spies to foreign countries, to get information. You can basically have cyber teams, sitting in your own location, and then they can try to probe vulnerabilities and networks or probe for information anywhere in the world.
Some of the world's first computers were tools for cyber spying. During the Second World War, the father of computing, Alan Turing, invented his bomb machine to decode secret radio messages encrypted by the Germans' Enigma machine. The intelligence helped the Allies stay a step ahead and avoid deadly surprises at sea. Now, as the internet connects computers in every nation, today's cyber spies can creep into government servers, nuclear power plants, banks, and your office laptop.
As you know, Singapore has suffered a series of hacks in the past, and some of them are quite high-profile hacks. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been hacked, SingHealth has been hacked, and in between that, there have been hacks, smaller hacks against the Ministry of Defense, for example. We should not assume that we are immune.
There are three things in data theft. One is that you could steal state secrets. Number two, it could be a hack and leak operation where you break into sensitive emails and you leak them out, basically to embarrass or to put some people in a bad light. And thirdly, it's theft of passwords, because many people reuse passwords. And so there may be people with access to sensitive systems whose passwords are in the data which is stolen, and you can use that to get into a more sensitive system than what you actually broke into in the first place.
The role and importance of digital spycraft is increasingly growing. More countries rely on cyber espionage rather than human intelligence in order to get information or ascertain, intentions of their targets or countries, what they are interested in.
Cyber spies can even hack the infrastructure that supports the internet. The internet's 4.4 billion users send and receive a huge amount of data every day. All their data packets are ultimately directed around the world by just 80,000 autonomous routers. These routers run the Internet's traffic control system, the Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP.
BGP is designed to establish Internet, delivering packets in the most efficient way. But they are originally not designed for security. It's based on honesty system. So everybody will try their best to ensure that they perform the norms as best you can.
But the BGP system can be tricked. A router could be used to redirect data packets off course and channel them to where they could be monitored or intercepted by cyber spies. This is BGP hijacking, a way to wiretap the information superhighway.
There are technically no solution that can be used to prevent BGP hijacking man-in-the-middle attacks.
The challenges that we face are that there are criminal actors, malicious actors out there who are also making use of the freedoms on the internet and taking advantage.
Hijacking the internet's delivery system for man-in-the-middle eavesdropping is a rising trend. And experts say it's becoming the internet's biggest security hole.
Cyber Espionage basically lays the groundwork for all cyber operations. You need to exploit some sort of vulnerability that will open a door toward further action, whether it's information manipulation, a cyber disruption, destruction, or even more serious cyber attacks down the road. Cyber digital spycraft basically enables you to open the door and stay there as long as possible.
Cyber spying opens a country to a variety of attacks. The most subversive of these is cyber disinformation.
It can be used to split a society apart.
This is the worst case scenario, but I think it's happening in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong 2020. Pro-democracy protesters have clashed with authorities since June last year. Months of violence and police brutality have sown distrust, priming citizens to believe a rising tide of online rumors and misinformation.
If you tell anybody in Hong Kong 1 year ago that Hong Kong police officers are secretly killing people and dumping the dead bodies in the ocean, nobody would have believed it. But now, there are a sizable number of people in Hong Kong who really think that that might be happening right now. The absolute mistrust in the government and authorities, including the police, is what's causing this so-called fake news phenomenon in Hong Kong right now.
At Hong Kong University, Dr. Masato Kajimoto monitors media content about the protests. He analyzes misleading and fake news from both sides of the divide.
If you look at the content people consume and share on the internet, misinformation and disinformation is a very small portion of it. But sometimes it gets shared many times and it influences the way people see what's going on in Hong Kong. For example, when our chief executive Carrie Lam, when she was in Japan attending the ceremony of the new emperor, there was this photo of her using mobile phone in the venue. That went immediately viral with the claim that she's very disrespectful to the royal family in Japan. We started investigating and then we realized that the video was taken 1 hour before the ceremony actually started. And if you look at the video closer, you realize that many other delegates are also using their mobile phones, right? Why do people believe that? Because people really don't care much about facts in this kind of context. The message you're getting from that kind of content is that she shouldn't be our leader. So with that level, the factualness of the particular photo is very secondary. And that's what I mean by appealing to the emotional reaction.
So information manipulation is sort of the next step in that conflict spectrum. And information manipulation, in many ways, uses cyber tools and methods to shape society or decision makers to change the decision making. And it's also a long-term process. It's also very subtle. Oftentimes, the lies, are often blended with the truth.
You look at problematic content coming to Hong Kong from outside, and there are some other probably motives. If it's coming from state-controlled media from the mainland China, obviously they want to influence the public opinions in Hong Kong in a political way. People are really getting one-sided narratives all the time from state-controlled media. But that content gets also shared on social media and is spread to Chinese-speaking populations outside of China and Hong Kong. Right? So Chinese people living in Canada, Australia, US, UK, in many European countries and African countries. So it seems governmental effort to dominate the narrative towards, or control the narrative is working among those populations.
Disinformation in its various guises has been tried in classical warfare and since the medieval period as well. There's a new vector which has accelerated everything, which is social media. Because from the offense side, it gives you a whole new set of tools, a panoply of tools where you can try to undermine target populations from very, very far away.
information warfare. It's not so new since the ancient Greek Empire, that has always taken place. But I think what is different today is, it is now supercharged, by the internet, by the fact that in many societies, including Singapore, many people are connected to the information highway.
Dr. Masato says misinformation and conspiracy theories have widened the gap between opposing camps, pulling the people of Hong Kong further apart.
To me, this is the worst case scenario. We reach a point where we can no longer understand the other side of the argument. We can no longer reconcile our differences.
The crisis in Hong Kong shows how misleading information on cyberspace can widen fractures in society.
The use of information isn't actually an act of war, but it can be used to bring down the morale of society. It can be used to split a society apart. It can be used to make people in society distrust each other and to even hate each other. And that can lead to all kinds of dangerous results, even harm to people, as much as a physical war would.
If some entity, an advanced entity with advanced resources, were trying to undermine the body politic, you would strike at the core of the cleavages that exist in Singapore in terms of race, language, religion, and so on. The fact is we have had racial riots way back in the past, and people remember this. And the aggressor, the adversary, may well remember this.
Misinformation in cyberspace can also lead to widespread panic.
The headlines this hour: Singapore has raised the alert level for the coronavirus outbreak to orange. It is the second highest level under the country's disease outbreak response system condition.
In 2020, during the COVID-19 virus outbreak, wrong information induced Singapore residents to panic buy supplies at stores and supermarkets. The government took immediate steps to calm people down.
In this digital era, if you contrast, say, the challenge we face today with COVID-19 compared to, say, SARS, the key difference is that today you have social media, you've got all kinds of other information circulating on this, and it's important that we act swiftly to debunk these falsehoods so that they don't mislead our people and cause them to get anxious.
To protect Singapore from misinformation spreading through cyberspace, the government has enacted the Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act, or POFMA for short.
We decided, let's have new legislation with a narrower set of powers than under existing legislation, focused on online falsehoods, with remedies that are more calibrated and provide for greater judicial oversight over executive action.
POFMA empowers the government to compel social media companies and content creators to correct, label, or take down false and misleading information.
It is useful where POFMA is concerned in tackling one-off sort of instances of disinformation or misinformation that could have serious public implications. But if we are looking at the concern about a very concerted attempt to disinform society, to cause public panic, I don't think it's designed to deal with what I would call a case of mass disinformation. After a crime has taken place, then the laws kick in and enables the authorities to act. But very often in a hostile information campaign, in asymmetric warfare, by the time that happens, I think it could potentially be too late.
If you look at what various countries have done, including Australia, Taiwan, a few others, they're legislating not just against fake news, which we have done, but also legislating against the threat of foreign interference. The legislation cannot exist in a vacuum. That has to be combined, I think, with important grassroots initiatives which are now starting to take root in Singapore.
In a ground-up movement against cyber disinformation, 4 university undergrads launched a campaign teaching older Singaporeans in their 50s and 60s how to stop spreading fake news on WhatsApp.
We realized that our parents often send us messages into WhatsApp chat groups, and they don't really know whether it's real or fake. Many of the people in our target age group, upon receiving a fake news message, their instinct is to immediately forward it to their friends and family out of concern. So therefore, we're trying to teach them to adopt the lowest barrier step, which is take a step back and don't forward the message first, and proceed with the second step, which is to ask the sender, sure or not. Singapore society should fight against fake news is because we are so diverse in terms of race, religion, and culture. There's a huge potential for conflict to arise if there's fake news being spread around about these things.
We need to scratch the surface a little bit more deeper to go back in time to understanding genuine interfaith, interethnic harmony, because when something really serious happens in the disinformation stakes in time to come, we're going to need not just a tolerance, we're going to need something much more deeper and meaningful than that.
Online misinformation can rip apart society over time, but more direct cyber attacks can instantly rattle a country by disrupting critical industries like banks and broadcasters.
그럼 국민 생활에 국민들이 가장 심리적으로 충격받는 거는 방송국이 공격을 받았다.
If I wanted to send my enemy back to the Stone Age, I would knock out their financial system.
South Korea, March 20th, 2013. At 2 p.m., cyber attacks disrupt major banks and broadcasting corporations. At MBC, Munhwa Broadcasting Corporation, cybersecurity expert Yeon Yun-sang sees the attack unfold.
그때 이제 들어와서 있는데 갑자기 그 사무실에 있는 PC들이 일렬로 이제 쭉 전원이 꺼졌습니다. 그래서 처음에는 이게 그 멀티탭이 좀 문제가 있었나 이제 그렇게 생각을 했는데 갑자기 또 이제 전화벨이 막 다 울리기 시작했죠. 이제 우리 사무실뿐만 아니라 다른 사무실도 전부 다 이제 전원이 쭉 꺼지는 그런 상황이었고요. 그다음에 이제 서버실에 들어가 보니까 서버들도 또 다 전원이 다 꺼져서 이게 뭔가 아주 뭐 큰 문제가 생겼구나 이제 그렇게 생각이 되었습니다. 굉장히 좀 혼란스럽죠. 이게 어떤 일이 일어났는지 사실 상황 파악도 좀 되지 않고.
Malware shuts down hundreds of computers across 3 broadcast companies, but it fails to halt TV broadcasts.
일단은 그 뉴스라든지 그런 방송 쪽에는 좀 사용하는 인터넷망하고는 좀 분리가 돼 있어서 크게 문제는 없었습니다. 문제는 없습니다. 방송 자체는 문제는 없었는데요. 근데 이제 뉴스 제작하는 그 보도국 쪽에 PC들이 다 나가니까 이제 요즘 다 작업을 PC로 이제 작업을 해야 되는데 그런 작업을 못 하니까 이제 뭐 손으로도 막 쓰고 이랬던 그런 현상들이 좀 있었습니다. 뉴스 쪽에는 그 시스템 자체는 크게 문제는 없었는데요. 이제 앵커가 보는 프롬프트 서버가 이제 2개가 있었는데요. 그 중에 하나만 이제 나갔거든요. 그래서 하나로는 정상적으로 작동하고 있으니까 그쪽은 이제 일단은 차질 없이는 되고 있습니다. 방송 자체는 뭐 크게 차질은 없었는데요. 근데 이제 대부분은 그 당시 워낙 이게 큰 사고다 보니까 TV에서는 다른 방송보다도 뉴스가 굉장히 거의 이제 이 사건만 다룬 그 뉴스만 위주로 많이 했었던 것 같아요.
Major internet services provider LG U+ says it believes its network was hacked.
The South Korean military has raised its cyber attack warning level after computer networks crashed at major TV broadcasters and banks.
Meanwhile, Korea's Financial Supervisory Service responds to cyber attacks on its banks. Citizens are unable to withdraw money from ATMs, automated teller machines.
2013년에는 그 ATM의 하드디스크 파일을 모두 삭제하는 인해서
금융회사의 ATM 거래가 중단되거나 그 고객의 개인정보를 이용해서 신용카드가 도용되는 피해가 있었습니다. 일단 그 사이버 공격으로 인해서 금융 서비스가 이제 중단되는 상황이 발생합니다. 그래서 일반 시민들에 대한 금융 거래가 중단되기 때문에 그 금융 거래를 하지 못함으로써 경제적 손실을 받을 수 있습니다.
해당 피해 기관들은 빨리 이제 복구를 하는 부분을 했었고요. 저희는 이제 이게 혹시 제2차, 3차 공격이 있을 수도 있기 때문에 다른 공격이나 이런 징후가 없는지 계속 모니터링을 하고요.
The Korean Internet and Security Agency finds that the cyber attacks had ruined about 48,000 computer systems.
일단은 이제 피해 상황을 체크해 보니까 상당히 이제 심각했고요. PC들도 상당히 한 700여 대 정도가 나갔고 서버들도 이제 상당히 많은 수량들이 다 장애가 생긴 상황이었고요. 복구는 그때 한 달 정도 이제 소요가 됐고요. 한 달 동안은 뭐 거의 집에도 좀 못 들어가고 이제 그렇게 해서 굉장히 좀 고생을 많이 좀 했었습니다.
2013년 그 공격은 5개 금융회사가 피해를 입었는데요. 가장 큰 피해는 그 N사의 그 ATM 시스템 하드디스크 파일들이 모두 삭제되는 피해였습니다. 그래서 그 하드디스크 그 삭제된 파일을 복구하는 비용이 가장 큰 금액이라고 볼 수 있습니다.
해당 피해 기관으로 저희가 이제 분석가들이 현장을 출동을 했습니다. 분석가들이 하는 일은 현장에서 포렌식이라든지 악성 코드를 체증해서 사고 원인을 분석하는 업무를 진행을 했었고요.
Digital forensic experts searched the cyber wreckage for clues, but the attackers had covered their steps.
그 사이버 공격을 하는 그 해커들은 그 자기가 추적되지 않도록 다양한 기술을 이용해서 그 숨기고 있거든요. 그래서 이런 부분이 좀 어려움이 있고요.
그래서 오후 2시에 공격이 시작한 다음에 결국은 공격을 갖다 성공시킨 다음에는 그들의 모든 그 악성 코드가 일종의 자폭 장치 있죠. 셀프 디스트럭션 장치가 있어서 스스로 다 자폭해 버렸어요. 셀프 이레징 시켜버리고 그랬는데 이제 다행히도 어쨌든 우리가 포렌식 조사를 하고 그래서 한 달 후에는 이게 노스코리아의 소행이고 어떻게 했다 뭐 이런 수법을 다 얘기했지만
Those same investigations suggest that hackers had corrupted the antivirus software serving the banks and broadcasters, making software updates inject malware in the systems automatically. They found these weaknesses by repeatedly probing the targeted systems over 9 months.
KBS의 경우에 약 1,580번 이상 그들이 계속 이런 정보들을 갖다가 전부 이제 가져간 다음에 결국은 공격 시나리오를 짰죠. 그래서 그걸 갖다가 3월 20일 10시 45분에 최종적으로 주입시킨 거예요.
So it's the paradox of technology. The more technology we use, the more vulnerable we become because the technology is the medium of today's new wars or future wars.
그럼 국민 생활에 국민들이 가장 심리적으로 충격받는 거는 방송국이 공격을 받았다. 그리고 금융기관은 어떤 국민들의 어떤 경제 활동에도 타격을 주고 금융기관이 공격을 받으면 심리적으로 굉장히 큰 경제적, 심리적으로 타격을 받을 거 아니에요. 결국은 은행이 공격을 당하면 경제적으로 타격을 받고 또 심리적으로도 타격을 받잖아요. 그러면 한국 체제가 불안해지죠.
If I were an aggressor and I wanted to send my enemy back to the Stone Age, I would knock out their financial system so that basically economically they have gone back to like ground zero. They are in poverty because they've got no way to get any money and they are basically unable to function as a society without having fired a single bullet.
With cyber, I don't have to go into real war, to create political effects or economic effects. And that's what makes this too very alluring to nation states.
굉장히 이제 국민들도 불안해하는 굉장히 좀 어떻게 보면은 사회적으로 큰 이슈를 파장을 일으킨 형태였기 때문에.
Lessons from the 2013 cyber attacks informed cybersecurity reforms in South Korea.
2013년 그 한국의 그 사이버 공격이 발생함으로써 우리나라도 이제 그 사이버 보안이 중요하다는 걸 인식을 하고 그 정부에서는 이제 그 실제로 정부 공공기관, 그다음에 국방, 그다음에 민간에서 특히 이제 금융 쪽을 보호해야 할 주요 산업으로 보고.
Like South Korea, Singapore has also marked its financial sector as a critical industry to protect from cyber attacks. The financial sector is crucial to the country's sense of security and the nation's reputation on the world stage.
Singapore, as a very small nation state, I think reputation means a lot to us, especially I think banking sector. We are known as the financial hub, a world's financial hub. Cyber attack that affects the financial sector. So that to me would be a very big concern to the reputation of Singapore.
Singapore's financial infrastructure is interconnected. Its banks rely on the internet and computer networks to enable everyday transactions.
We are leveraging and relying a lot on technology. But technology also opens up what we call the attack surface. If the hacker group is sophisticated enough, they will target multiple organizations. They can target the payment infrastructure that used to support interbank transactions, which means it will easily hit all the banks. This can create what we call a ripple effect across the financial system. And if the attack is further exacerbated by fake news and misinformation, then people may be in fear, and this may lead to what we call bank run or mass withdrawals from the banks. That can become a big problem for Singapore, given that financial sector is a critical sector and it would impact multiple sectors across the country. So that I think would be the worst scenario that we could anticipate.
Singapore's financial sector prepares for worst-case scenarios. Over 140 financial organizations, including banks, insurers and the stock exchange, have taken part in joint exercises, training to deal with cyber attacks.
We get all the member FIs and ABS to take part in the exercises and then advance them to the next step. At the same time, we feel that there is a need for a coordinated set of strategies to respond to a cyber attack. It actually becomes a systemic risk to the financial sector. So if financial sector gets breached by hackers who then able to access some of the personal information that the bank has. So if you can imagine, the same login credentials can be used to access your IRAS, your CPF and all that. That same information can be used by the hackers for launching other attacks to other online services.
But what happens when cyber attacks on a nation go viral, spreading like a pandemic, crippling multinational corporations and government agencies, leading to global chaos?
Imagine the effect of a nuclear weapon without that radiation and bomb blast.
Ukraine, June 2017. Malware infects national servers, paralyzing banks, airports, power grids, government offices, even the systems monitoring Chernobyl nuclear power plant.
The NotPetya malware, that was a tribute to Russia because it used an unpatched Windows vulnerability that many companies, the ones that were hit the most, did not upgrade their systems to a new operating system. So that was what allowed the malware to spread so quickly.
The malware used in the cyber attack was dubbed NotPetya, and it exploits a bug found in older versions of Microsoft Windows. It encrypts computer file databases and demands a ransom in Bitcoin equivalent to $300. But the ransom note is a cover-up.
The problem is that even if you paid the ransom, you would never get your data back. It was all encrypted, and it was all designed to destroy the actual computers and computer networks.
The attacker used the Eternal Blue, which is a tool of the NSA, the National Security Agency, that was leaked by a hacker group called the Shadow Brokers a few months before the attack. And the attacker reused the Eternal Blue in order to take the NotPetya attack.
The cyber attack may have been targeted at Ukraine, but the infection quickly spreads across Europe. In Denmark, at the headquarters of Maersk, the world's biggest shipping line, employees see the virus rebooting their computers spontaneously. They scramble to unplug from the network before their computers get destroyed.
One of the biggest shipping companies, if not the biggest, was almost brought to its knees on account of, well, what may have been a human weakness to begin with.
NotPetya leaves a trail of destruction across the world. Its casualty list would include many government offices and iconic global companies. In total, the cyber attacks caused $10 billion in damages.
Imagine the effect of a nuclear weapon without that radiation and bomb blast, but creating similar effects in terms of paralyzing the socio-economic infrastructure of the target. The readiness of both private and government sectors has shown its limits. And this is the paradox of today's cybersecurity. So despite the resources that we put into cybersecurity, there's no cybersecurity.
When the NotPetya virus paralyzed Maersk, it also crippled India's largest container port. It was a wake-up call to maritime nations like Singapore.
All these different companies from different parts of the world are actually, in a sense, connected. So if one of them have that issue or get hit because of cyber threats, and of course, this will have ripple effect to any of those other people in the same industry.
As one of the world's leading transshipment hubs, Singapore connects 600 ports in over 120 countries. As its highly efficient port depends on computers, it's a rich target for hackers. The ships that navigate its sea lanes also depend on onboard computer systems.
So maritime sector actually is a very important economy pillar for Singapore. It is actually contribute to about 7% of Singapore GDP. There are over 170,000 people working in this industry alone to make sure that the goods deliver to all parts of the world. At the same time, a lot of organizations are doing a lot of digitalization effort to improve productivity, efficiency, and of course to benefit the customer. So with all this digitalization effort, there lies the cybersecurity threats. Because the fact that it's more connected, there will be more entry point. Once there's more entry point, obviously there's more risk. There's an opportunity for people to entry into the environment and create some havoc. So it's important for the organization to step up their awareness for the cybersecurity to make sure that they understand the risk and at the same time step up their cyber defense in case of all these incidents that has happened or will happen.
To face rising cyber threats, in 2019, the Maritime Port Authority launched MSOC, the Maritime Cybersecurity Operations Center.
The objective of MSOC is basically to strengthen the maritime cyber defense through the mechanism of early detection, early monitoring, early response, early analysis. So we use a lot of technology to help us to pick up all these different threats. And of course, with that technology assistance, we're able to pick up it faster and respond faster. But once we picked up this anomaly, we will send it across to the maritime stakeholder. And through that mechanism of information sharing, the responsible person in the respective organization will take the necessary action.
The maritime cyber threats that port authorities discover are shared internationally.
Maritime business is actually a global business. There's a lot of player in this ecosystem itself. For instance, the shipping company, the port authorities from different parts of the world, the container business as well. Therefore, it's actually important for all of us to come together and collaborate, because awareness as well as cyber defense is important. And because of that, NPA spearheaded this forum. We call it the Port Authority Chief Information Officer Network. In short, we call it PETNet, to share cybersecurity information across the different port authority, to tell them what actually each one of us are facing right now, and at the same time, what is the best practices that they can use to mitigate some of these risks.
The authorities in Singapore and the Maritime Port Authority, to name one, have looked at this very, very deeply. They are amply resourced, but more to the point, they make it a point to network internationally and regionally.
The maritime and finance sectors are among nearly a dozen sectors vital to Singapore's security. Singapore's Cybersecurity Act of 2018 has marked 11 sectors as critical information infrastructure.
Critical information infrastructure are the computer systems and networks which are directly involved in the provision of what we call essential services to Singapore and to Singaporeans.
These are key components of our digital infrastructure, which if they're not secure, then they undermine the larger smart nation digital economy effort.
The new laws obligate these critical sectors to carry out the best practices of cybersecurity and information sharing.
It becomes important for these critical infrastructure owners to not only ensure that there is regular maintenance, but to also be alert, to put in place processes, systems, to ensure that they are able to deal with threats.
Besides the Cybersecurity Act, we also run exercises. This ensures that we don't just have the plans in place in terms of paper, but we actually practice this so that everyone is aware of what they're supposed to do and we become familiar with the processes.
I would say that the Cybersecurity Act is a necessary legislation, but it certainly is not going to prevent, neither is it going to stop a determined enemy, unfriendly state from seeking to undermine our cyber infrastructure, our cybersecurity as well.
We have to accept that with the smart nation comes not just opportunity, but also risk and potential vulnerability as well.
Any country seeking to prosper from information technology must grapple with a world of cyber threats. Next, Secret Wars explores conflict in cyberspace.
Cyber domain is emerging as a new frontier for battle.
Conventional warfare and cyber attacks coming together.
Can cyber warfare be regulated? And should there be rules of engagement?
There is no declaration of war.
It's not clear in international law whether it's legal or not to cyber attack a hospital.
Cyber technology enables the attacker to hide himself or even to make it look like someone else did it.
Even if you have those fingerprints, how do you ensure that you are able to stop this perpetrator from repeating his attack?
And what's at stake when hackers gain control of our most vital utilities?
How sure are you to know that the water you're drinking is safe?
If, let's say, domestic water supplies are disrupted or infected, that could cause significant damage to life as well.
So once the attacker gained access, they started to bring down parts of the electricity network.
For me, the fear always is, what if? And in nuclear terms, you always have to think about what if.
The fact is, if hackers want to attack you, they will succeed. It is impossible to protect everything.
The people and the companies who don't think that a cyber attack will ever happen to them, trust me, it might happen sooner or later. It happened to us.